When going into a new roller coaster, most likely you have some sort of expectations. Either you are ready for a great fun ride, a dumb ride with bad elements, or no expectations at all. It's safe to say you've probably done all three of those things. So have I. Sometimes those rides meet the expectations, sometimes they fall flat. Sometimes they blow you away like the big bad wolf blew away the hay and stick houses. And I'm gonna pretend like I never made that analogy. Today, I'm going over the top 10 most overrated and underrated coasters I have ever ridden, all in one video. But first, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. It only takes a second, so why not? I mean, the worst you can do is unsubscribe later, so why not just subscribe right now? Anyways, let's get into the video. Number 10 overrated, Blue Hawk at Six Flags Over Georgia. This coaster is only here because of the people who say it's bearable. It's not bearable at all. This Vekoma looper doesn't do anything except give me whiplash and make me regret riding it. The vests are uncomfortable and the overall ride experience was not pleasant. Overall, I would never ride this coaster again, and Six Flags Over Georgia should do us all a favor and tear this thing down. Number 10 underrated, Shockwave at Six Flags Over Texas. Let's head over to Arlington to Six Flags Over Texas. Here is Shockwave. This Schwarzkopf double looper is an incredible ride. A lot of people give it credit for this, which is why it's very low on the list. But some people don't realize that this thing has some mental ejector. This is definitely some of the strongest airtime I've experienced, and by far the strongest airtime in the park. Not only does it have that crazy airtime, but it also has the intense double loops, reaching nearly 6 Gs. You really feel the forces there. Overall, this is a crazy ride, and I cannot tell you how much this flies under the radar. Number 9 overrated, Batman clones. We can stay at Six Flags Over Texas for this one, or we can go to the 50 bajillion other parks that have one of these. This is the Batman clones. Sorry, Tarby, these things aren't that intense. This cloned B&M invert is so incredibly common that I bet 90% of the people watching this video have ridden one. I mean, San Antonio literally has 2 of them 10 minutes away from each other. Yeah, that's how many there are. These layouts are honestly pretty good for how compact they are, but the thing is, they aren't that intense. They really don't pack in as much intensity as a lot of people say they do. I feel like they've started to become overrated because people realize they're good despite being clones, and now they've become overrated. Not to the scale of some of the other rides on this list, but they're starting to get a little bit too much attention. Number 9 underrated, Wild Eagle at Dollywood. Moving to Tennessee, we have Wild Eagle. This B&M wing coaster has coined the nickname Mild Eagle, and I really don't understand why. The B&M vest restraints found on this ride really aren't that bad. They gave me enough room to experience the awesome hang time this ride has to offer. I even grayed out on one of the inversions. Don't remember which one, but it was one of them. Seriously, this ride has a lot to offer, and it doesn't get credit for that. This is a great ride with an awesome setting, and one of my favorites at the park. Make sure to check it out if you're ever at Dollywood. Number 8 overrated, Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood. Staying at Dollywood, we have Tennessee Tornado. This ride was fun and very smooth, however, it gets a little too much praise. In my eyes, this was a fun ride, but not that intense. Yes, it was intense, but nothing on the level that I'd heard about. People said the drop was insane, and I was massively disappointed with it. Granted, I did have to sit right in the middle of the train, which is very annoying. It was still a very fun ride, but not like top 100 in the world or anything. Number 8 underrated, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. This ride gets a lot of hate by people who haven't ridden it. On paper, it doesn't look like much, but the ride experience is unforgettable. This thing has an incredible first drop that is unlike any other. One of the strongest finales on any roller coaster with that amazing dive off the quarry wall and my favorite traditional inversion. This coaster has some very cool moments that interact with the quarry wall that surrounds the whole park. I know what you're probably thinking. What about the section on the quarry wall? People need to quit complaining about it. The bad pacing, because it really isn't that bad. It still is very fun and has a place in my personal opinion. Overall, this ride is very complete, and you have to experience it to understand. Number 7, Overrated. Superman Krypton Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Staying in Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, we have considered to be the best B&M floorless coaster by many. This is Superman Krypton Coaster. This coaster is known for doing lots of awesome inversions with some nice hang time. Sorry to break it to you, but that is all a lie. From my many experiences, it really doesn't give any hang time. It's just tall and fast with big inversions. It really doesn't do anything for me personally. The standout element is by far the 0G roll. It isn't forceful, but it gives so much stomach feeling, and I love it. Other than that, the ride really isn't that great. Number 7, Underrated. Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Over Georgia. Let's head down to Georgia for our number 7 spot, the classic PTC Woody Great American Scream Machine. This ride is so much fun. It's so insanely rough, and you just get thrown around, and it is so much fun. And it isn't painful either, which is why I still find it a lot of fun. Some people say there's airtime. I personally got none, but I was stapled on my one ride I got. But I believe that there's airtime on this thing. Overall, this is such a fun ride that isn't hyped up enough. It turned out to be one of my favorites at Six Flags Over Georgia. Number 6, Overrated. Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. Let's stay in Georgia for the B&M Hyper Coaster Goliath. A few days before I rode this, I rode Mako. That thing has some awesome airtime, and I love it. With the reputation Goliath has, I thought I'd love it too. Turns out it gets a lot of hype that it doesn't really deserve. The Camelbacks gave weak floater, and the Finale Hills gave some weak lifter airtime. The drop was also very underwhelming. I was hoping for a good drop, and it definitely didn't get one. Mako's is literally the same thing, but way better. The Helix definitely packed in those positive G's, but I was just so disappointed by the rest of the ride. Overall, it's nothing crazy and not really deserving of its current reputation, but it still is a good ride. Number 6, Underrated. Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Studios, Florida. Let's travel a few hours down south to Universal Studios, Florida for Revenge of the Mummy. I had never seen the layout for this Premier Rides indoor coaster, and I'm very glad I didn't. It was a surprise. I wasn't expecting such an intense experience. The theming is incredible and nearly matched the level of Hagrid. Plus, it delivered some awesome ejector airtime and intense turns. The backwards launch is low-key pretty intense, and the ride is super aggressive for what it is. Overall, I actually prefer this to Hagrid by quite a bit, and it absolutely exceeded my expectations. Don't go in expecting a tame ride. Number 5, Overrated. Mr. Freeze at Six Flags Over Texas. Let's come back to the Lone Star State for Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast, the Premier Rides launched shuttle coaster. This gets praised as one of the most intense roller coasters in the state of Texas. It gets praised for its super forceful inverted top hat, awesome backwards launch, plus awesome vertical spike. For me, this ride doesn't deliver the punch it does for most others. Some people call this the most intense ride in the park, when it's really just a solid first place. Third place, not first. But Titan has the most intense helixes I've ever experienced, and Shockwave reaches 5.9 Gs on that double loop. I do enjoy this ride, and I ride it every time I'm at Six Flags Over Texas, most of the time more than once. But it doesn't even come close to the top 2, New Texas Giant or Shockwave, for me personally. Number 5, Underrated. Steel Eel at SeaWorld San Antonio. Let's go a few hours down to San Antonio for Steel Eel at SeaWorld San Antonio. This Morgan Mini Hyper Coaster is an awesome ride. It fixes my complaints with Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia and gets a whole lot less attention by coaster enthusiasts. This thing has some crazy sustained airtime. You get some awesome floater on the first few hills and some awesome lifter on the finale hills. Also, that was my ankle popping. My bad. This ride is also so insanely fun for one other reason: the awful transitions. Now, you might be confused why I'm praising something bad, but let me explain. These transitions out of the airtime hills slam you into your seat. That sounds very painful, but the padding in the seats makes it the exact opposite. These are so abrupt, and it makes me laugh uncontrollably every time I get to ride it. Overall, this ride flies completely under the radar and should be getting the amount of attention that Goliath at Over Georgia gets. Number 4, Overrated. Poltergeist at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Drive 10 minutes down the road and you'll reach the destination for the premier ride spaghetti bowl coaster taking the number 4 spot, Poltergeist. This ride was added to Six Flags Fiesta, Texas back in 1999, and you can tell. It's way rougher and jerkier than some rides older than it. The launch is pretty forceful, and I've almost blacked out on the turn following that launch, but the ride doesn't do anything for me the rest of the time. This is a very compact ride, and it tends to be on the rougher side and relatively jerky, but especially in the back row. Now, my opinion might change since I don't normally ride this coaster, but for now, it's very, very overrated by the fans of these clones. Number 4, Underrated. Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Let's head right back to Florida to talk about one of my favorite rides at Busch Gardens, Tampa, Cheetah Hunt. This Intamin Blitz coaster was a fun ride when I first rode it, but it's grown on me a lot since after riding it. I've realized that this is such a fun and complete ride. It packs in some solid airtime pops, amazing hang time on the Heartline roll, and 3 awesome launches. The maneuvers this ride does mimic that of a cheetah. The layout is pure genius. It packs in so many fun elements and a decently long ride. My main complaint is that the restraints are pretty annoying, but they don't really hinder the ride experience too much. Another sucky thing is that this can get some long lines, which is annoying. Overall, this is my favorite launch coaster, and I'm excited to ride it again someday. Number 3, Overrated. Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Let's head back to my home park in San Antonio, and you'll find the original RMC Raptor Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster. This ride is known for some insane airtime, incredible pacing, and even some good positives, as well as the very long name. Safe to say, most people look at this ride all wrong. Well, besides the long name, and the fact that it looks like a McDonald's French fry. The layout starts with 3 incredible airtime moments back to back to back. And sadly, these are the only good moments of the ride. The second half has two very pointless inversions, the stupid S-curves that can slam you to the side, and the very overrated drop off the S-curves. A lot of people call this the best part of the ride, and I entirely disagree. That title belongs to the dive loop. You get awesome airtime going up into it, it's sideways, and you stay up out of your seat until you bottom out. And did I mention there's some atrocious restraints on these? Yeah, they're like weird vest restraints. They're like comfort collars, but even worse. They're by far the worst restraints I have ever used. And I've used Blue Hawk's vests. That should say a lot. Overall, the first elements are absolutely insane, but everything else on the ride just falls flat for me. Number 3, Underrated. Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. Let's head on down to Kissimmee, Florida for my favorite non-launched wooden coaster, Mind Blower. This Gravity Group wooden coaster is absolutely insane. This packs in so much into a small plot of land. You've got a really great first drop, a 0G roll with some sensational hang time, and some incredibly strong ejector moments. This ride also packs in some solid laterals, and while they don't do much for me personally, they could make the ride a lot better for some people out there. I don't care much for laterals, but for those of you who do, you're in luck. Not only all of that, but it uses the very comfy Timberliner trains. These are some of my favorite restraints, and I love these things. They allow for some really good airtime and make it comfortable as well. Overall, this is a fantastic ride, and you have to check it out. It's worth every single penny. Number 2, Overrated. Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. Our runner-up is down at Islands of Adventure. It is the new for 2019 Hagrid. I don't feel like saying the whole name again, so yeah. Anyways, this ride is known for its amazing theming and fun ride experience. The only problem is that it isn't fun. Yes, the theming is incredible, but when I talk about how much I like a coaster, theming is not something that makes a ride good. The ride really doesn't do much for me. Besides the drop track, nothing stood out to me. The theming is flat out incredible, but like I said earlier, it doesn't make the ride better. It makes it overhyped. The ride doesn't have any airtime, it's not very intense, and it really doesn't do much for me. It wasn't designed to do much, but that's kind of the problem. Why couldn't they have just thrown in a couple good elements? Honestly, they should have just kept Dragon Challenge. Hagrid is a good ride, but really nothing out of this world. Number 2, Underrated. Silver Bullet at Frontier City. Let's travel to Oklahoma City for our runner-up for underrated coasters, Silver Bullet. This Schwarzkopf looping star is just great. It mixes intensity with some aggressive moments and a great pop of airtime. I really don't have much to say about it. This ride is just awesome, and a lot of you guys watching might not have even heard of this ride. If you haven't before, you can check out my review on it after this video is over. That point in time, I hadn't gone on that trip that I just got back from a few weeks ago, but it still stands as one of the most underrated coasters I have ever ridden. I've never heard anybody talk about this, and if you can't, you gotta check this ride out. Number 1, Overrated. Kumba at Busch Gardens, Tampa. I knew what the top 2 would be as soon as I made the list. I decided to put this at number 1 for a few reasons. I could understand why someone would like this ride. The first half is so whippy and has some very intense inversions, and I love it. But the second half kills the ride for me. I got quite a bit of headbanging, and I came off with a massive headache. 2 of my least favorite things on a coaster. A lot of other people don't seem to have this problem, but I did on both my rides. The second half is the reason I don't like Kumba much, and if the second half was different or just didn't exist, I would love it. It definitely isn't a top 100 coaster for me, but it still stands as a good, intense B&M. Number 1, Underrated. Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios, Florida. Back to Universal Studios for the most underrated coaster I have ever ridden, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. This ride gets a ton of hate. It has a dumb layout, a lift hill steeper than the drop, and a whopping 5 brake runs. Yeah, this ride was pretty much designed for the GP, but this ride is honestly amazing. You get so much ejector airtime, and it's absolutely insane. On that non-inverting loop, you get some awesome sustained airtime, and it's incredible. There's some awesome elements, including the helixes that pack in some awesome positives, 5 brake runs, which includes some crazy airtime going in and coming out of them, and bunny hills with great airtime on each one. Overall, this is such an overhated ride, and I don't understand why mainly only Florida enthusiasts give this ride the praise that it deserves. This surprised the crap out of me, and it ended up being my favorite coaster at the resort. This is an insane ride, and I highly recommend you check it out. That's going to be all for this very unpopular video. If you enjoyed, leave a like down below. I would also ask to consider subscribing to the channel. We're doing very well, and I would love your support. Make sure to also be like the Iron Rattler Ride-Ops and staple that subscribe button. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Peace out.
So averagely, to be safe, you want to go 1, 2, and then it'll show green on the screen, right? That's a lot of room, right? Averagely, most ride-offs will just walk around and be like, not even touch it, just... And that's how they'll test the seats, right? Okay. Now, for some reason, when they see coaster enthusiasts wearing shirts, here's how they do it. So we go 1, 2, that's safe. We want to go one more, just not make it so obvious. And then they see and they're like, oh man, what are you doing? What's the trick? And then what they really do is just be like, here we go. And then that's what they do. All clear.